BHP Billiton is heading in a new direction with its spin-off South32. The mining giant today unveiled more details about the proposed demerger, and shareholders get their say in early May. BHP shares bounced in early trade, but what's the longer-term outlook for investors? Well, Roger Montgomery from Montgomery Investment Management joins me now. And Roger, it's a very big company, South32, so for starters, a lot of big fund managers are going to have to invest in it anyway, aren't they?
Index funds, which have enjoyed increasing popularity over the last few years, are going to have to invest in it. And then every other fund manager that I guess operates on a tracking error basis, making sure that they're not tracking too far from the index, they're going to have to buy it as well. What's interesting is the performance of these spin-offs.
Well, in terms of other spin-offs, the track record of spin-offs,
yeah, the track record.
What does happen?
Well, over the last 5 years or thereabouts, there was a study by Pennsylvania State University and JP Morgan, and they found that they tend to outperform over an 18-month period. They produce a performance premium over the market. That doesn't necessarily mean they go up, but they do better than the market. But over the first 6 months, they tend to underperform. When we have a look at some of the examples in our market, for example, Aurora, that came out of Amcor, SCA, which came out of Woolworths, Treasury Wine Estates, which came out of Foster's. There's a raft of them that have done extraordinarily well. Even Treasury Wine Estates, which had suffered from a high Australian dollar and also a glut of wine, still produced at 8.5% performance per annum since it was spun out.
Still, you've got BHP management talking about this asset as a diversified portfolio of high-quality cash generative assets with a strong balance sheet.
But we're selling it.
Yeah, but we're selling it.
You can have it. We don't want it. You know, it's interesting. My interpretation of spin-offs is usually negative, and that is you can't find a buyer for the asset, so you just hand the equity back to shareholders and say, look, do with it as you please. That might be the case here. This might be the exception to the rule in terms of performance, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Would it be a takeover target in itself, though, down the track, do you think?
Anyone who's interested in manganese and aluminium, silver and lead might be interested, and I would suggest, based on JP Morgan's research, to take advantage of it in the first 6 months.
All right. Now, also today, of course, we've had the RBA, the Reserve Bank minutes out, and there's some sort of suggestion that there might indeed be a further interest rate cut. What is this going to do for the investment market, do you think? Well,
it's interesting. We're I think at a real turning point at the moment, because what we've got is the market disengaging from the economic climate. So we've got corporate profits, top 200 companies, unfortunately, their profits declined by 26% in the last half. We've got a tsunami coming from China in terms of declining consumer and business sentiment. So we've got a creeping recession that's spreading all over the world, and yet because of cheap money, we've got record share prices in many sectors of Australia and the United States. So when that happens, it tends not to survive, so we tend to get a correction. A rate cut is not going to make a material difference to people's spending behaviour. If you're not borrowing money at 2.25%, you're not going to borrow a whole bunch at 2%. And what we're seeing, of course, though, is rising asset prices rather than rising economic activity.
So you're really talking about a continued distortion of the market. Are you taking more out and putting it in cash?
Yes, in fact, we've got about 26 or 27% of both portfolios in cash at the moment, which is the highest we've been for a number of years now. That's not to say we're expecting an imminent crash. We've still got 75% invested in the market. But we can't find a lot of value at the moment.
Roger Montgomery, thank you very much for joining us there.
It's a pleasure, Ticky.